Billionaire replaced her with his mistress before Christmas. She returned to his winter wedding with quadruplets. The sound of shattering crystal echoed through the ballroom like a gunshot. 200 guests turned to stare as champagne spread across white marble like spilled blood. And standing in the entrance, snowflakes melting in her dark hair, was the woman Caspian Ashford thought he buried in his past. "I have 4 children you've never met." Her voice cut through the silence, cold and precise as a surgeon's scalpel. "Vivian." Caspian's voice came out as barely a whisper. "What are you doing here?" She walked toward him, heels clicking against marble, 4 small children flanking her like a perfectly coordinated unit. The crowd parted instinctively, phones already emerging from designer clutches. "Hello, Caspian. Congratulations on your anniversary." She gestured to the children beside her, each one staring at him with storm-gray eyes that mirrored his own. "I thought it was time you met your children. These are Ethan, Sophie, Oliver, and Grace. Your quadruplets." His wife Bianca's perfectly manicured nails dug into his arm. "This is ridiculous. Caspian, tell them this is some gold digger trying to." Vivian's laugh was sharp enough to draw blood. "Gold digger?" She pulled an envelope from her purse and held it out. "DNA test. Court admissible. 99.99% match." She met his eyes with devastating composure. "I'm not here for your money or your pity. I'm here because Grace asked why she didn't have a father like the other kids in her kindergarten class. I couldn't lie to her anymore." The smallest girl, no more than 5 years old, tugged on Vivian's hand. "Mommy, why is everyone staring?" "Because they're surprised, sweetheart." Vivian's voice softened when she addressed the child, revealing the only crack in her icy armor. "We won't stay long. Wait." Caspian finally found his voice, though it shook like he'd been standing in the December cold for hours instead of seconds. Are you saying?" "I'm saying I was pregnant when you left." Vivian's composure was remarkable, but he could see the slight tremor in her hands as she touched each child's head. "I tried to tell you that night, but you were too busy planning your upgrade. I found out on Christmas Day. 4 babies. Premature odds, high-risk pregnancy, complications I won't bore your guests with. Have you ever realized too late that you threw away everything that mattered? Have you ever stood face to face with the consequences of choosing ambition over love?" Caspian Ashford built a billion-dollar empire, commanded boardrooms across 3 continents, and married a woman whose face graced magazine covers. But standing in his own resort ballroom, he was bankrupt in everything that counted. 5 years of birthdays, first steps, bedtime stories, gone forever. Could any amount of money buy back the time he'd thrown away? Would these 4 strangers ever call him dad and mean it? Could the woman he abandoned with 4 heartbeats inside her ever forgive him? Or would his desperate attempt to become the father he should have been end in rejection? If you've ever struggled between ambition and what really matters, this story will change you. Hit that like button if you believe people can change. Subscribe to Mr. Steven's Stories for tales that will transform how you see success. And drop a comment, do people who walk away deserve to come back? Stay with me, because what happens next will break your heart and rebuild it. But to understand how Caspian Ashford, one of the world's most ruthless real estate moguls, ended up trembling before a woman and 4 children in his own ballroom, we need to go back. Back to where it all fell apart. Back to the night he made the worst decision of his life. 5 years earlier. Christmas Eve. Snow drifted past the windows of the modest Denver apartment in lazy spirals, each flake catching the multicolored glow of Christmas lights strung across the living room. Vivian Morgan stood at the window, one hand resting on her barely swollen belly, the other holding her phone. She'd checked it 17 times in the past hour. The apartment smelled of cinnamon and pine. A small Christmas tree stood in the corner, decorated with handmade ornaments and a single string of lights. Vivian had spent the afternoon baking cookies, wrapping the modest gifts she could afford on her gallery assistant salary, and rehearsing how she'd tell Caspian about the baby growing inside her. Their baby. She'd discovered the pregnancy 3 days ago, had been bursting with the secret ever since. Tonight was supposed to be perfect. Christmas Eve dinner, just the two of them, followed by her news. The greatest gift she could imagine giving him. The clock on the wall read 11:43. He'd left at 6, promising to be back by 8. Just a quick meeting with potential investors, he'd said. An hour tops. This deal could change everything, Viv. Then we can really start our life together. She'd kissed him, told him she'd have dinner waiting, and spent the next 5 hours watching that dinner grow cold. Her phone buzzed. Finally. But it wasn't a text. It was the sound of a key in the lock. Cass. She rushed to the door, relief flooding through her. I was so worried. I thought maybe. I can't do this anymore. His words were flat, emotionless, and they stopped her mid-sentence like she'd hit a wall. He stood in the doorway, snowflakes melting in his dark hair, and he wouldn't meet her eyes. What? Her hand instinctively moved to protect her stomach. That's when she saw the silhouette behind him. A woman, tall and elegant, waiting in the hallway with the patient confidence of someone who'd already won. You're sweet, Viv. You really are. Caspian's voice was clinical, like he was delivering a quarterly earnings report. But I need someone who understands my world. Someone with connections, sophistication, capital. The woman stepped into the light. Bianca Cortez. The Italian investor whose family owned half of Milan. Vivian had met her once, briefly, at one of Caspian's networking events. She remembered thinking the woman looked at Caspian like he was a racehorse she was considering purchasing. Bianca and I are getting married. Caspian still wouldn't look at her. Her family's investment will take Ashford Properties global. We'll be operating in 15 countries within 2 years. Caspian, she tried to tell him. Tried to force the words past the cotton that seemed to have filled her throat. But he was already turning away. I've transferred 6 months' rent to your account. His voice softened for just a moment, and that somehow made it worse. That should give you time to figure things out. You deserve someone who can give you a simple, happy life, Vivian. That was never going to be me. The door closed. Through it, she heard Bianca's laughter, sharp and triumphant, like breaking glass. Vivian stood alone in their apartment, his former apartment, her hand on her belly, as the radio continued playing Christmas carols with oblivious cheer. Silent night drifted through the speakers, mocking her with its promise of peace. She didn't cry. Not yet. Her phone buzzed again, and she looked down with something like hope, desperate and foolish. It was a bank notification. 6 months' rent, deposited to her account. Below it, another notification. He'd removed her from his phone plan. Effective immediately. She walked to the window and watched the snow fall, one hand still protecting the secret growing inside her. The secret he'd never given her a chance to share. The next morning, Christmas Day, Vivian sat in a paper gown in an examination room that smelled of antiseptic and artificial lavender. She'd barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Caspian's face as he turned away, heard Bianca's crystalline laughter. The ultrasound technician, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and holiday earrings shaped like reindeer, squeezed warm gel onto Vivian's abdomen. Let's see what we have here. She moved the wand across Vivian's belly, eyes on the screen. Then she stopped. Her eyes widened. Oh. Oh my. What? Vivian pushed herself up on her elbows, heart suddenly racing. Is something wrong? The technician's face broke into a wondering smile. Miss Morgan, I think you're going to need to see this. She turned the screen so Vivian could see. At first, it just looked like the same grainy black and white image she'd seen at her first appointment 3 days ago. Then the technician pointed to 4 distinct areas, each with a tiny flickering light. 4 heartbeats. The technician's voice was filled with awe. "You're carrying quadruplets, Miss Morgan." The room seemed to tilt. 4. The odds are 1 in 729,000. The technician was already calling for the doctor. "This is extraordinary." Dr. Martinez arrived within minutes, a petite woman with gray-streaked hair and steady hands. She confirmed what the technician had discovered, then delivered the rest of the news with professional gentleness. "This is classified as a high-risk pregnancy, Vivian. Quadruplets almost always arrive prematurely. You'll need to be monitored closely, possibly bed rest in your 3rd trimester. There are complications we'll need to watch for. Gestational diabetes, preeclampsia, premature labor." Vivian barely heard her. She was staring at the screen, at the 4 tiny lives that had just redefined her entire world. 4 babies. 4 children to raise. Alone. "Can I?" Her voice cracked. "Can I have a printout of the ultrasound?" Dr. Martinez printed several copies and handed them to her with a gentle squeeze of her hand. "You're going to need support, Vivian. Family, friends, the father." The father made his choice. The words came out harder than she'd intended. "It's just us now. Me and these 4. Walking out of the clinic into the bright Christmas morning, ultrasound images clutched in her hand, Vivian pulled out her phone. Caspian's contact was still there. She could call him right now. Tell him about the 4 babies, the high-risk pregnancy, the medical bills that were already starting to pile up in her mind. Her finger hovered over his name for a full minute. Then she remembered the way he'd looked at Bianca. The way he'd said capital and sophistication like they were virtues that mattered more than love. The way he'd calculated 6 months' rent, a neat severance package for a relationship he was terminating. She deleted his contact. Some gifts, she decided, are too precious to give to someone who can't see their value. If Caspian Ashford wanted to choose money over love, then he could live with that choice. These 4 babies were hers. Hers to protect, hers to raise, hers to love. She would do it alone if she had to. And for the next 5 years, that's exactly what she did. The pregnancy was every bit as difficult as Dr. Martinez had warned. By her 2nd trimester, Vivian's body felt like it belonged to someone else. Her mother, Rose, a widow who'd raised Vivian alone after her father's death, moved into the small apartment to help. "You're eating for 5 now, sweetheart." Rose set another plate of scrambled eggs in front of her daughter. "Doctor's orders." "I can't, Mama." Vivian pushed the plate away, morning sickness making her stomach revolt. "I'll just throw it up again. Then I'll make you another plate." Rose's voice was firm but loving. "Those babies need nutrients, and so do you." The medical bills started arriving before the babies did. Even with insurance, the costs of a high-risk quadruplet pregnancy were staggering. Vivian had to quit her job at the gallery when bed rest became mandatory at 28 weeks. Rose picked up extra shifts at the diner where she'd worked for 20 years, coming home with swollen feet and forced smiles. "We're managing," she'd say whenever Vivian cried about the growing stack of bills. Family manages. Vivian's brother James, a construction worker with 2 kids of his own, showed up every Sunday with groceries he claimed were on sale but Vivian suspected he'd paid full price for. "You're going to need a bigger place." He looked around the 1-bedroom apartment. "4 cribs won't fit in here." "I can't afford a bigger place." "Then they'll fit." James squeezed her hand. "We'll make it work, sis. We always do." At 32 weeks, Vivian's water broke at 3 in the morning. Rose called 911 while James sped over to drive them to the hospital. The next 12 hours were a blur of pain, fear, and the increasingly worried faces of doctors and nurses. "We need to do an emergency C-section." Dr. Martinez's calm had given way to urgency. "Baby A is in distress. Will they be okay?" Vivian gripped her mother's hand so hard she left marks. "Mama, will they be okay? They're fighters." Rose kissed her daughter's forehead. "Just like their mother." Ethan arrived first, weighing 3 pounds and 2 ounces, screaming his fury at the world. Mia followed 2 minutes later, 3 pounds even, quieter but alert. Lucas came third, 2 pounds and 14 ounces, so tiny the nurse's hands seemed enormous around him. Grace was last, the smallest at 2 pounds and 11 ounces, but with the strongest cry of all. For incubators. For tiny bodies covered in wires and tubes. For miracles that Vivian was terrified she'd lose. The NICU became her world. She sat between the incubators for hours, talking to her babies, reading to them, playing them music. The nurses taught her how to do kangaroo care, holding each premature infant against her bare chest so they could hear her heartbeat. "You're their home." One of the nurses, a grandmother with 30 years of experience, smiled at her. "They know your voice, your smell, your heartbeat. You're what they need most." At night, alone in the apartment while Rose slept and the babies fought for life in the hospital, Vivian would open her laptop. She'd started making snow globes as therapy, something to do with her hands during the long bed rest months. Tiny worlds captured in glass, each one unique, each one perfect in its containment. She posted photos of them online, never expecting anything. But people started commenting. Asking if they were for sale. Offering money for custom pieces. Her first commission was $50 for a snow globe featuring a customer's childhood home. She'd spent 3 days getting every detail right, crafting the miniature house from polymer clay, painting each shingle, creating a tiny garden with trees no bigger than her fingernail. The customer cried when she received it. More commissions followed. A wedding scene. A grandmother's farm. A soldier's last view of home before deployment. Each one, Vivian poured her heart into, creating beauty while her babies fought for life. By the time Ethan, Mia, Lucas, and Grace came home after 8 weeks in the NICU, Vivian had 17 orders and a waiting list. She'd also moved into a 2-bedroom apartment, Rose permanently installed in the 2nd bedroom, both of them taking shifts with 4 newborns who seemed determined to never sleep at the same time. "Why don't you just call him?" James asked one Sunday, watching his sister juggle a crying Lucas while trying to feed Grace. "He should be helping with this." He made his choice. Vivian switched babies with practiced efficiency. "These are mine. They're his too, legally. Only genetically." She looked at her brother with exhausted but fierce eyes. He signed away any right to them when he walked out that door on Christmas Eve. James didn't bring it up again. The years that followed were a blur of sippy cups and skinned knees, preschool applications and grocery bills that made Vivian's eyes water. Her snow globe business grew beyond anything she'd imagined. A feature in a local magazine led to a feature in a national one. A collector in New York commissioned a piece for $10,000. A museum in Chicago wanted an installation. By the time the Quadruplets turned 5, Vivian Morgan was a name in the art world. Her snow globes sold for thousands, with a 2-year waiting list. She'd moved into a modest but comfortable house with a dedicated workshop, hired her mother as her business manager, and had enough saved to start thinking about college funds. She'd built an empire of her own. Not as flashy as Caspian's hotels and resorts, but real. Solid. Made from love and determination instead of ruthless ambition. And through it all, the children asked about their father. Ethan, serious and protective even at 5, wanted to know why they didn't have a daddy like other kids. Sophie, observant and artistic, drew pictures of families that always had a missing piece. Lucas, curious and logical, asked if their father knew they existed. Grace, optimistic and tender-hearted, wondered if maybe he'd come find them someday. Vivian answered honestly, age-appropriately, and always with the same message. "You are loved. You are enough. We are a family, and we are complete." But Grace's questions became more frequent as kindergarten started. The other kids talked about their daddies. Father's Day at school meant making cards for grandfathers and uncles, while Grace made one for Uncle James and cried because it wasn't the same. "Does our daddy know about us?" Grace asked one night, curled up against Vivian during bedtime stories. Vivian set down the book. "No, sweetheart. He doesn't." "Why didn't you tell him? How did you explain to a 5-year-old that you tried? That the man had literally turned his back before you could get the words out? That he'd chosen money and status over love, so why would 4 babies have changed his mind? It was complicated, baby. But it wasn't because of you. None of this is because of you 4. You are the best thing that ever happened to me." But Grace's tears didn't stop. And that's when Vivian made her decision. Caspian Ashford had a right to know about his children. And more importantly, they had a right to know their father, even if that father turned out to be a disappointment. She wouldn't make that choice for them anymore. They deserved the truth, the whole truth, and the chance to decide for themselves if they wanted him in their lives. It took 3 weeks to find out where he'd be. Caspian Ashford was famously private despite his public business profile. But money and determination could find anyone, and Vivian had both. His 5-year wedding anniversary celebration at the Ashford Alpine Resort. Black tie, 200 guests, a who's who of the business and social elite. The event was being covered by 3 magazines and live-streamed to shareholders. It was perfect. Public enough that he couldn't simply have her removed. High profile enough that he'd have to respond. Witnessed enough that he couldn't pretend it never happened. She made 4 small outfits, each one perfect. She practiced what she'd say, how she'd stay calm, how she'd protect the children from whatever happened. She explained to them, carefully, that they were going to meet their father. That he might be surprised. That he might not react well. That no matter what happened, she loved them and they'd be okay. "Are you scared, Mama?" Ethan asked the night before. Terrified, Vivian admitted. But brave too. Sometimes being brave means being scared and doing it anyway. The Ashford Alpine Resort glittered like a palace carved from ice and starlight. Vivian stood in the entrance with 4 small hands in hers, looking at the crystalline ballroom where 200 people celebrated 5 years of a marriage built on ambition instead of love. Grace squeezed her hand. "It's so pretty, Mama. Like your snow globes. Just like them, sweetheart." Vivian squeezed back. Little perfect worlds in glass. She could turn around. Drive back to Denver, tell the children their father wasn't ready to meet them, build a beautiful lie that would spare everyone pain. It would be kinder. Easier. Safer. But she thought of Grace's tears. Of Ethan's questions. Of Sophie's drawings with missing pieces. Of Lucas asking if their father knew they existed. They deserved the truth. She walked through those ballroom doors with her children, her head high, and shattered Caspian Ashford's perfect world with 7 words. "I have 4 children you've never met." Now, standing in the ballroom with 200 pairs of eyes on her, Vivian felt the weight of every choice she'd made in the past 5 years. Caspian stood frozen, champagne soaking into his expensive Italian shoes from the glass he'd dropped. His wife, Bianca, looked between Vivian and the children with an expression of pure rage. "Why didn't you tell me?" Caspian finally managed to ask, his voice barely audible over the whispers erupting around them. Fire flashed in Vivian's eyes for the first time since she'd entered. "I did tell you. You were too busy becoming a tech mogul to listen. And then you made it abundantly clear you wanted no part of your old, simple life. I never knew there were 4 of them. Would it have made a difference?" Vivian's voice cut like a blade. One child wasn't worth staying for. Would 4 have changed your mind? The question hung in the air, unanswerable, damning. One of the boys, Ethan, stepped forward. He had Vivian's determined chin and Caspian's gray eyes, and he looked at his father with an intensity that seemed far too old for 5 years. "Are you our father?" His voice was clear, carrying across the silent ballroom. "Mother says you didn't know about us." Caspian looked at the child, his son, and felt his carefully constructed world tilt on its axis. "I didn't. I swear I didn't know. This is my anniversary party." Bianca's shrill voice shattered the moment. "You can't just barge in here with some. They're not illegitimate." Ethan interrupted, his small voice fierce. "We have a mother. We have each other. We have Grandma Rose and Uncle James. We don't need." "Ethan." Vivian's gentle hand on his shoulder silenced him. "Remember what we talked about. Kindness, even when it's hard." The boy subsided, but his gray eyes, so like Caspian's, flashed with protective anger. Caspian's assistant, Marcus, leaned in close, his voice urgent. "Sir, the press is outside. If this becomes a scandal, let them write what they want." Caspian surprised himself with the firmness in his voice. He couldn't look away from the 4 children. His children. 5 years of milestones. 5 years of birthdays, first words, first steps, Christmases. All gone. Erased by his own cowardice and greed. The other little girl, Sophie, was staring at the Christmas decorations adorning the ballroom with wide, wondering eyes. "Mommy, this place is so pretty. Like the snow globes you make." Snow globes. Caspian latched onto this detail, desperate for any connection, any piece of information about the lives that had continued without him. "Mother's an artist." The other boy, Lucas, explained with matter-of-fact precision. "She makes custom snow globes for museums and collectors. She's famous for them. We help sometimes." Vivian the artist. Caspian had known she painted back when they were together, had seen her sketches and watercolors. But he dismissed it as a hobby, never asking about her dreams, never imagining it could become something more. "How did you manage?" The words came out raw, unfiltered. "For babies, alone, with the medical complications you mentioned. That's not your concern anymore." Vivian's voice was steady, but something flickered in her eyes. Pride. Pain. Strength earned through survival. "We're doing fine. Better than fine. I didn't come here for a reunion, Caspian. I came to give you a choice. A choice. These children are yours biologically. But they don't know you." Vivian met his eyes squarely. "You can acknowledge them, meet them properly, be part of their lives if you want to earn that privilege. Or you can sign away your parental rights, and we'll never bother you again. Either way, I needed you to know they existed. Don't you dare." Bianca snapped at Caspian, her perfect composure cracking. "We are not raising some woman's illegitimate. They're not illegitimate." Ethan's voice rang out again, and this time several guests nodded in agreement. The tide of public opinion was turning, and Bianca could feel it. "Mommy, I'm tired." Grace, the smallest, whimpered and tugged on Vivian's hand. Vivian checked her watch. "We should go. It's past their bedtime." She pulled business cards from her purse and set them on the nearest table with deliberate precision. "My contact information. Think about what you want, Caspian. But don't take too long. These 4 deserve stability, not a father who shows up when it's convenient." She began to shepherd the children toward the exit, one hand on each of their shoulders, her movements calm and controlled despite the chaos she was leaving in her wake. "Wait." Caspian found himself moving forward, nearly tripping over his own feet in his haste. "Tomorrow. Can I see them tomorrow? Please." Vivian studied him for a long moment. Around them, 200 people held their collective breath, phones recording every second of the drama unfolding. Outside, camera flashes went off as the press caught wind of something newsworthy happening. The Lodge on Maple Street. Room 407. 10 a.m. Vivian's voice was clipped, professional. Don't be late. And Caspian? She paused at the doorway, snowflakes beginning to swirl in from the open doors. Don't come unless you're serious. They've been through enough uncertainty. Then she was gone, for small hands in hers, disappearing into the snowy night like a dream, like something his subconscious had conjured to punish him for his sins. The ballroom remained frozen in shocked silence for 3 full seconds. Then it erupted. Voices overlapping, questions flying, phones ringing as guests called friends and reporters called editors. Caspian stood in the center of it all, numb. Bianca's perfectly made-up face had gone blotchy with rage. If you pursue this, she hissed, gripping his arm hard enough to bruise, I swear I'll divorce you. I'll take half your fortune. I'll destroy your reputation. Choose them and lose everything. He turned to look at his wife, really seeing her for perhaps the first time in 5 years. Seeing the calculation in her eyes, the way she assessed every situation for maximum personal benefit, the way she'd never once asked if he was happy, only if he was successful. You'll what? His voice was calm, almost curious. Divorce me? Take half my fortune? Do it. I don't care anymore. You don't mean that. Bianca's voice rose, drawing more attention. You're in shock. That woman clearly planned this ambush to humiliate us, to extort money. That woman is someone I abandoned. Caspian interrupted, his voice hardening with each word. Someone I walked away from on Christmas Eve because I was too much of a coward to build something real. He looked around at the opulent ballroom, the ice sculptures melting slowly in the corner, the champagne fountain that cost more than most people's cars, the society guests whispering behind their hands. I traded authentic love for all of this. And it's worth nothing. He walked out, leaving Bianca sputtering in the center of the ballroom, leaving the 5-year anniversary celebration he'd spent 3 months planning, leaving the life he'd built on ambition and greed. Outside, snow fell in thick curtains, already covering Vivian's tire tracks. Caspian stood on the steps of his resort, in his $15,000 tuxedo, and watched the taillights of her car disappear down the mountain road. Marcus appeared beside him with a coat. Sir, you'll freeze. I'm already frozen. Caspian took the coat anyway. I've been frozen for 5 years. The press is going crazy. Marcus held up his phone, showing trending hashtags and breaking news alerts. This is already viral. The board is calling. Your lawyers are calling. Everyone wants to know how you're going to handle this. How am I going to handle this? Caspian laughed, a hollow sound. I'm going to do something I should have done 5 years ago, Marcus. I'm going to stop running. He went back to his penthouse suite, the one that overlooked the resort and the valley beyond. 1,500 square feet of luxury, designer furniture, original artwork, and absolutely nothing that meant anything. The DNA test envelope sat on his desk where he dropped it. He opened it with shaking hands. 99.99% probability of paternity for all 4 children. Ethan James Morgan Ashford. Sophie Rose Morgan Ashford. Lucas Michael Morgan Ashford. Grace and Morgan Ashford. They all had his last name, even though he'd never given them anything else. Even though he'd abandoned them before they existed. He opened his laptop and searched for Vivian Morgan artist. The results flooded his screen. Articles from art magazines, features in lifestyle publications, gallery showings from New York to Los Angeles. Her snow globes were displayed in the Museum of Modern Art, in private collections belonging to celebrities and politicians, in galleries across 3 continents. She'd built an empire while he'd been building his. But hers was made of beauty and love and determination, while his was made of ruthless ambition and calculated moves. One article included a photo of her in her workshop, surrounded by tiny glass worlds, the 4 children helping her with careful concentration. The caption read, "Morgan with her quadruplets, who she calls her greatest creations." He'd missed it all. 1825 days of their lives. 260 weeks. 60 months. An infinity of moments that no amount of money could buy back. At 2 a.m., unable to sleep, he started shopping online. What did 5-year-olds like? He had no idea. He'd never spent time with children, had actively avoided them at social functions, had told himself he was too busy for family. He read parenting blogs, child development articles, gift guides for kindergartners. By 4 a.m., he'd assembled a list. A drone for Ethan, who apparently loved science and building things. A premium art set for Sophie, who'd inherited her mother's talent. A telescope for Lucas, who'd mentioned loving stars. A musical jewelry box for Grace, who seemed drawn to beauty and music. Would they see the gifts as genuine gestures? Or transparent attempts to buy affection he hadn't earned? At 6 a.m., his lawyers started calling. At 6:30, Bianca's lawyers called. By 7, he'd received divorce papers citing abandonment, emotional distress, and humiliation. Do whatever you need to do. He told Bianca's lead attorney, a shark named Richardson who'd made a career of destroying men in divorce court. Take whatever you want. I don't care. Mr. Ashford, you should care. Richardson's voice was smug. Your wife is prepared to take half of everything. The resorts, the properties, the investments. We're talking billions. Then she can have billions. Caspian looked at the photo on his screen, at 4 children he'd never met building snow globes with their mother. Money can't buy back what I lost. There was a long pause. Mr. Ashford, are you feeling all right? Perhaps we should postpone this conversation until you've had time to process. I'm processing just fine. For the first time in 5 years, I'm seeing clearly. He ended the call. At 9 a.m., showered and dressed in jeans and a sweater instead of his usual suit, Caspian stood in his bedroom holding 4 wrapped gifts. His hands trembled as he checked his watch. 9:15. If he left now, he'd be early. He arrived at the lodge on Maple Street at 9:45. The building was modest, a far cry from his luxury resorts. Clean but simple, affordable but not cheap. He stood outside room 407, gifts in hand, heart hammering against his ribs. What if they hated him? What if Vivian had changed her mind? What if this was his only chance and he ruined it? At 9:58, he raised his hand and knocked. Vivian opened the door. She was wearing jeans and a soft gray sweater, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. No makeup, no designer clothes, no artifice. She was more beautiful than he remembered. Real in a way nothing in his life had been real for 5 years. You're early. I couldn't sleep. Her expression softened slightly, something that might have been understanding flickering in her eyes. Neither could I. She stepped aside. They're finishing breakfast. Fair warning, they have questions. The hotel room was modest, nothing like the luxury suites in his own properties. It smelled of pancakes and syrup and childhood. 4 small faces looked up from their plates as he entered, syrup on Grace's chin, Lucas's hair sticking up in the back, Sophie studying him with those artist's eyes, Ethan's expression carefully neutral. You came. Ethan said, and there was surprise in his voice. Real surprise, like he'd expected Caspian to disappoint them already. I said I would. Caspian knelt down to their level, an instinct he didn't know he had. The gifts felt suddenly foolish in his hands, but he set them aside. I know I'm a stranger to you. I know I have no right to ask for your time or attention. But if you'll let me, I'd like to try to be your father. Not just biologically. Really try. The silence stretched for 3 heartbeats. Then Sophie, the observer, asked the question that gutted him. Why did you leave our mom? Her voice was blunt, direct, with the devastating honesty of childhood. On Christmas? The question hung in the air like the snow that continued to fall outside the window. Caspian looked at this 5-year-old girl, at her mother's observant eyes and his own stubborn chin, and knew that anything less than complete honesty would be a betrayal. Because I was scared. He sat down on the floor, eye level with them now. And selfish. I thought money and success were more important than love. I thought building my company mattered more than building a family. He met each of their eyes in turn. I was wrong. Are you going to leave again? Grace's small voice wavered, and it broke something in his chest. Caspian looked at Vivian, standing by the window with her arms crossed protectively over her chest. She was watching him carefully, ready to step in, ready to protect them from whatever damage he might do. I don't know how to be a father. He admitted, and the honesty felt like stepping off a cliff. I'll probably make mistakes. But if you give me a chance, I promise I won't leave. Not again. Can we see your hotel? Lucas asked, practical even at 5. The big one on the mountain. You can see anything you want. Mommy too. Grace insisted, and the loyalty in her voice was fierce. Especially your mother. Vivian's expression remained guarded, but something flickered there. Not forgiveness. Not trust. But maybe, possibly, the smallest seed of possibility. What's in the boxes? Ethan asked, eyeing the wrapped gifts with suspicion. I brought you something. Caspian reached for the packages. But I want you to know, these aren't, I'm not trying to buy your affection. I wanted to bring something. Ethan took the first package with careful hands, unwrapping it slowly. The drone. His eyes widened despite his determination to stay aloof. This is a top-level model. You mentioned science. Caspian said quietly. I thought you might like to build something. Sophie opened hers next. The art set was professional grade, the kind real artists used. She looked at it, then at her mother, then back at Caspian. How did you know I paint? Your mother mentioned it. He glanced at Vivian. She said you have her talent. Lucas's telescope was met with quiet delight. Can we really see Jupiter's moons with this? We can try. Caspian's throat felt tight. If you want to, we could set it up sometime and map the constellations. Grace's musical jewelry box played a delicate version of Swan Lake. She opened and closed it 3 times, watching the tiny ballerina spin. I take ballet. She announced. Miss Andrea says I'm very good. I'd love to see you dance sometime. I have a recital in 3 weeks. She looked at her mother. Can he come, Mama? That's up to him. Vivian's voice was neutral. If he commits to being there, he has to follow through. No broken promises. I'll be there. Caspian said immediately. Front row. The breakfast continued with awkward starts and stops. Ethan asked technical questions about Caspian's company, testing his knowledge. Sophie watched him with those artist eyes that saw too much. Lucas wanted to know about orbital mechanics and whether Caspian really understood astrophysics. Grace chattered about ballet and her best friend and her favorite color, which was purple, no pink, no actually both. And through it all, Vivian watched. Protecting. Evaluating. Giving him just enough rope to either pull himself up or hang himself with. After an hour, she stood. Okay, kids. Time to get ready. We have plans this afternoon. Will we see him again? Grace asked. That depends. Vivian looked at Caspian. On whether he's serious about this. I am. Caspian stood as well. I know I haven't earned your trust yet. Any of you. But I want to try. Vivian walked him to the door while the children gathered their things. Outside, in the hallway where little ears couldn't hear, she laid out her terms. We take this slow. Her voice was firm. No promises you can't keep. No gifts to buy affection. No undermining my authority with them. Miss one appointment, break one commitment, and you're done. They've been through enough uncertainty. I won't let you hurt them. Whatever you need. Caspian met her eyes. I'll follow your lead. You're the expert here. You're the one who's been there for them every day for 5 years. I'm trying to catch up. You'll never catch up. The words were harsh but true. You missed 5 years, Caspian. You can't get that back. But if you're consistent, if you're genuine, maybe you can be part of the next 5 years. And the 5 after that. That's all I'm asking for. A chance. Supervised visits for the first month. 1 afternoon per week. We'll see how it goes. He nodded, accepting the boundaries she was setting. What day? Saturdays. 2 p.m. There's a park near our house. I'll text you the address. I'll be there. She studied him for a long moment. I hope so, Caspian. For their sake, I really hope so. The next 4 weeks were the longest and most humbling of Caspian's life. Every Saturday at 2 p.m., he met Vivian and the children at Riverside Park. She was always present, always watchful, a mother bear protecting her cubs. The first Saturday was awkward. He pushed the kids on swings, helped them across the monkey bars, tried to make conversation that felt forced and unnatural. Grace was the easiest, climbing into his lap on the park bench and chattering about her week. Ethan was the hardest, maintaining a careful distance, evaluating every word Caspian said for sincerity. You don't have to try so hard. Vivian said during the second visit, watching him fumble with Sophie's request to play pretend. Just be honest with them. They can tell when adults are faking it. I don't know how to play pretend. Then tell her that. Be real. So he did. Sophie, I don't really know how to play pretend. I never had much imagination as a kid. Can you teach me? Sophie's face lit up. Okay. You're a dragon who's actually nice but everyone thinks you're mean. I'm a princess who's also a scientist. We have to save the kingdom from boring people who don't believe in magic. That, I think I can do. By the third Saturday, Lucas asked if they could visit Caspian's office to see the computers. Vivian agreed, and Caspian spent 2 hours showing his son the server rooms and explaining how networks functioned. Lucas absorbed every word like a sponge, asking questions that would have challenged most adults. You're brilliant. Caspian said as they left. You know that, right? Mom says I get it from both sides. Lucas looked up at him with those serious gray eyes. She says you were smart too, before you got stupid. Caspian laughed, the sound surprising him. She's not wrong. The fourth Saturday, Ethan finally asked the question Caspian had been dreading. Why didn't you ask about us before? They were sitting on a bench while the others played. Mom said she tried to tell you about being pregnant. Why didn't you let her? Caspian took a deep breath. I was on the phone. Closing a business deal that I thought was the most important thing in the world. When she tried to talk to me, I told her I was too busy. I said we'd talk later. And then I never gave her the chance. Because you left with that other lady. Because I left with Bianca. Yes. Do you still love her? No. Caspian met the boy's eyes. I don't think I ever really loved her. I loved what she represented. Success. Status. All the things I thought mattered. Mom says love is choosing someone every day. Not just when it's easy. Your mom is a very wise woman. She cried a lot when we were babies. Ethan's voice dropped. Grandma Rose told me. She said Mom would cry at night when she thought no one could hear. Because she was tired and scared and alone. Each word was a knife to Caspian's heart. I'm sorry. It's not enough, I know it's not enough, but I'm so sorry, Ethan. Are you going to make her cry again? I hope not. I'm going to try very hard not to. Ethan studied him for a long moment. Okay. But if you do, I'm going to punch you. I'm little now, but I'll get bigger. That's fair. Caspian held out his hand. Deal. Deal. Ethan shook it solemnly. After the fourth Saturday, Vivian agreed to unsupervised visits. Short ones at first. Caspian taking the kids for ice cream while she ran errands. Then longer ones. A movie. The science museum. The aquarium. He learned their rhythms. Ethan needed time to warm up but was fiercely loyal once he decided you were trustworthy. Sophie processed everything through art, coming home from each visit to paint what she'd felt. Lucas asked a million questions and remembered every answer. Grace loved physical affection, constantly reaching for hands to hold or laps to sit in. And slowly, carefully, Caspian began to build something he'd never had before. A relationship with his children. But the outside world wasn't so carefully controlled. 2 months into their new arrangement, Ethan came home from school with a black eye and a 3-day suspension. Vivian called Caspian, her voice tight with stress. I don't know what to do with him. He won't talk to me. He just keeps saying it wasn't his fault. Can I come over? You don't have to, this isn't your scheduled day. I want to. If that's okay. 20 minutes later, Caspian found Ethan sitting on the front porch, a bag of frozen peas pressed to his swelling eye. Vivian hovered in the doorway, worry etched across her face. Mind if I sit? Caspian asked. Ethan shrugged. They sat in silence for a few minutes. Then Caspian said, You want to talk about it? No. Fair enough. More silence. Then, I got suspended once. 8th grade. Broke Tommy Mitchell's nose. That got Ethan's attention. Why? He said something about my mom. Called her a name. I didn't think, I just swung. Did you get in trouble? Grounded for a month. But my dad, he told me something I never forgot. He said fighting is never the answer, but standing up for the people you love, that's always worth doing. The trick is learning how to stand up without using your fists. Ethan's jaw worked. Ryan Hutchkins said you only came back because Mom blackmailed you. Said you probably weren't even our real dad. Said Mom was just after your money. Caspian felt rage flash through him, hot and protective. What did you say? I told him he was a liar. He said prove it. So I showed him the picture Mom let me keep. Of you and her before you left. He laughed and said that didn't prove anything. Said Mom probably just found some rich guy who looked like us and made up the whole story. And then I hit him. Caspian put his arm around his son's shoulders. I would have hit him too. Really? Absolutely. He's wrong on every count, and he deserved it. But your mom's right, violence isn't the answer. Even when the other person is being an idiot. Then what is the answer? The truth. Caspian pulled out his phone and showed Ethan the DNA test results he'd saved. This is proof. 99.99%. You and your siblings are mine. Biologically, legally, and if you'll let me, by choice. By choice. I'm not here because I have to be, Ethan. I'm here because I want to be. Because you four are the best thing that ever happened to me, even if I was too stupid to realize it 5 years ago. Ethan looked at the test results, then at Caspian. Can I show Ryan? If you want. Or you can just stop caring what Ryan thinks. People who matter don't need proof. They believe you because they know you don't lie. Mom says that too. Like I said, she's wise. Caspian squeezed the boy's shoulder. How about we go get some ice cream? The kind your mom pretends she doesn't know you eat before dinner. For the first time, Ethan grinned. Okay. But maybe we don't mention the fighting part. Deal. As they drove to the ice cream shop, Caspian felt something shift. A wall coming down. A bridge being built. This was fatherhood, he realized. Not the grand gestures or expensive gifts, but showing up. Being present. Choosing them, again and again, even when it was inconvenient. The media circus around their story had died down somewhat, but it flared up again when Bianca's divorce proceedings revealed her multiple affairs and embezzlement. The tabloids had a field day. Billionaire's wife caught in love triangle, or was it quadrangle? Ashford marriage built on lies and stolen money. Real estate mogul chooses secret kids over cheating wife. Caspian hired security for Vivian and the children when reporters started showing up at their house. He also hired a publicist to manage the narrative, making sure the focus stayed on Bianca's crimes rather than his children. This is exactly what I was afraid of. Vivian said when photographers caught Grace leaving ballet class and she came home crying. I didn't want them exposed to this. I'll handle it. Caspian promised. I'll hire lawyers, get restraining orders, whatever it takes. You can't control the media, Caspian. No, but I can protect my family. The word hung between them. Family. He'd said it without thinking, natural as breathing. Vivian's expression softened. Okay. Handle it. But keep them out of it as much as possible. He did. Within 2 weeks, he'd gotten court orders preventing photographers from approaching the children. He'd made generous donations to several media organizations in exchange for agreements not to publish photos of minors without parental consent. He'd used every resource at his disposal to build a wall around his family. And Vivian watched him do it, saw him put their children's well-being above his company, his reputation, his convenience. Saw him cancel board meetings to pick Grace up from ballet. Saw him reschedule investor calls to make Ethan's science fair. Saw him delegate responsibilities he'd never trusted to anyone before because being present mattered more than being indispensable. 3 months became 4, then 5. The supervised visits became unsupervised. The once a week became twice, then 3 times. Caspian's penthouse began to accumulate signs of children. Drawings on the refrigerator. Small shoes by the door. A telescope set up on the balcony for stargazing with Lucas. You could just move closer. Vivian said one evening when he was picking the kids up for dinner. Instead of driving 45 minutes each way. Would that be okay? With you? She hesitated. I don't know. Maybe. We'd have to talk about it. But she didn't say no. And that felt like progress. Then came the night that changed everything. Caspian was asleep in his penthouse at 2 a.m. when his phone rang. Vivian's name on the screen sent his heart racing. She never called this late. Hello. I'm sorry to bother you. Her voice was shaking. But the other 3 are sick too and I can't get Grace's fever down and, I don't know what to do. He was out of bed before she finished the sentence. I'm on my way. You don't have to, it's the middle of the night. I'm already dressed. 15 minutes. He made it in 12, driving too fast through empty streets, still in pajama pants and a hastily thrown-on coat. The door to Vivian's house was unlocked, and he could hear coughing and crying before he even entered. The scene inside was chaos. 3 children coughing in different rooms. Grace crying in Vivian's arms, her face flushed with fever. Vivian on the phone with the emergency nurse hotline, exhaustion and fear evident in every line of her body. Tell me what to do. Caspian said. For the next 4 hours, they worked as a team. Caspian held Grace in a lukewarm bath while Vivian administered medicine to the others. He read stories in hushed voices to Ethan and Lucas while she made Sophie drink fluids. They tag-teamed between rooms, between children, between crisis and comfort. By 6 a.m., all 4 children were sleeping peacefully, fevers broken, breathing easier. Vivian collapsed on the couch, and Caspian sat beside her, maintaining careful distance despite every instinct telling him to pull her close. "Thank you," she whispered. "I couldn't have managed alone." "You shouldn't have to manage alone." He stared at his hands, at the wedding ring he'd finally taken off last month when the divorce was finalized. "You never should have had to." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Vivian spoke, her voice raw with exhaustion and honesty. "I hated you for so long." She wasn't looking at him. "Do you know what it's like, going through a high-risk pregnancy alone? Being so sick I couldn't work. Wondering if I'd survive childbirth. Wondering if my babies would survive. Vivian, Let me finish." She turned to face him, tears streaming down her face. "I hated you. I would imagine seeing you again and telling you exactly what I thought of you. All the pain, all the fear, all the moments you missed. I had speeches prepared. I deserve every word. But then you came back. And I waited for you to disappoint them. To miss a visit, to break a promise, to choose your company over them. I waited for you to prove that leaving was the right choice." She wiped her eyes. "But you didn't. I'm trying. I can see that." She leaned back against the couch. 3 months ago, you drove through a snowstorm to make Ethan's science fair. Last month, you cancelled a meeting with the Tokyo investors to take Sophie to her art show. Yesterday, you spent 2 hours helping Lucas build a model rocket instead of attending your own company's product launch. They matter more. That's what I'm trying to say. Vivian finally met his eyes. "You've changed, Caspian. You're not the man who walked away on Christmas Eve. And I don't know what to do with that." "What do you want to do with it?" She looked at him for a long moment. "I don't know. I'm still scared. What if you wake up one day and realize this domestic life isn't enough? What if the novelty wears off and you want your old life back?" "It's not a novelty," Caspian said quietly. "And I did wake up. 6 months ago, when I saw you in that ballroom. I woke up and realized I'd been sleepwalking through life for 5 years." He reached for her hand slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. "I sold the penthouse," he said. 3 weeks ago. I closed on a house 2 blocks from here yesterday. 5 bedrooms, big backyard. There's a room with perfect north-facing light that would make an amazing art studio." Vivian's eyes widened. "You bought a house. For them. For you, if you want it. For us, if we get there." He squeezed her hand gently. "I'm not going anywhere, Viv. I'm all in. For our children. For whatever this is between us. For however long it takes to prove that I've changed." "You really sold your penthouse?" "Listed it the day after the anniversary party. It sold in 3 days. And you're just telling me now?" "I didn't want you to think I was trying to force anything. This is me proving commitment, not demanding forgiveness." Vivian studied his face, searching for deception or hidden motives. Then, slowly, she leaned her head against his shoulder. It was the first time she'd voluntarily touched him in 6 years. "We'll take it slow," she murmured. "For the children's sake. As slow as you need," he said, hardly daring to breathe. From the hallway, there was a soft sound. They both looked up to see 4 small faces peering around the corner, quickly ducking back when spotted. "I told you they were holding hands." Sophie's whisper carried clearly. "Does this mean Daddy's staying?" Grace asked hopefully. "Shoo, you'll ruin it," Ethan warned. Statistically speaking, parental reconciliation after, Lucas began. "Kids," Vivian called, amusement threading through her exhaustion. "We know you're there. Four children tumbled into the room, piling onto the couch in a tangle of limbs and questions. "Are you and Daddy together now?" Grace asked. "Are you moving in?" Ethan added, trying to sound casual but failing to hide the hope in his voice. "Can we have family movie nights?" Sophie wanted to know. Oliver just watched with those quiet, knowing eyes. Vivian looked at Caspian, and something passed between them. Not quite love, not yet. But possibility. Hope. A chance. "How about we start with family breakfasts?" Caspian suggested. "And see where it goes from there." "Pancakes?" Grace asked eagerly. "Chocolate chip." He confirmed. "Then you can definitely stay," she declared, snuggling against him with the easy acceptance of childhood. Ethan was more reserved, but he didn't move away when Caspian's arm came around his shoulders. Sophie climbed into Vivian's lap. Lucas squeezed between his parents, his small hand finding Caspian's. Have you ever watched someone fight their way back from their worst mistake? Have you ever seen redemption happen in real time, moment by moment, choice by choice? This is what it looks like. Not grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but showing up at 2 a.m. when your kids are sick. Canceling meetings to attend art shows. Learning to make chocolate chip pancakes because that's what matters to a 5-year-old. Comment below if you've ever had to earn back trust you broke. Hit that subscribe button if you believe people can change. Because this story is about to show you what transformation really costs. The family breakfasts became a regular thing. Every Sunday morning, Caspian would arrive at 7 a.m. with ingredients for pancakes. At first, Vivian watched from a careful distance. Then she started helping. Then she started laughing at his terrible jokes. Then she started looking at him the way she used to, before he'd broken everything. 3 months after the fever night, Vivian brought up an idea that surprised both of them. "My lease is up in 2 months." She said it casually, but there was nothing casual about the way she wasn't meeting his eyes. "I've been thinking about whether to renew." "What are you thinking?" Caspian asked carefully. "That house you bought. The one with 5 bedrooms." She finally looked at him. "Is the offer still open?" His heart stopped. "You mean?" "I mean maybe it's time to stop living in 2 separate places when we're already acting like a family." She held up her hand before he could respond. "Separate bedrooms. Clear boundaries. We're doing this for the kids, to make their lives easier. Not because we're not there yet. Whatever you're comfortable with." Caspian managed to keep his voice steady. "I just want you close." "Okay then." She smiled, and it was the first real smile she'd directed at him in 6 years. "Let's do this." Moving day was chaos in the best possible way. 4 children raced through empty rooms claiming territories. Ethan wanted the room with the best Wi-Fi signal. Sophie needed the one with the most natural light. Lucas claimed the room closest to the roof access for stargazing. Grace wanted to be next to Vivian. And Caspian watched his family, because that's what they were now, fill the house with life and noise and love. That first night, tucking 4 children into their new beds in their new house, Caspian felt something he'd never experienced before. Completeness. Purpose. Home. He was saying goodnight to Grace, reading her the 3rd story because she'd negotiated well, when she looked up at him with those serious eyes. "Daddy Caspian?" "Yes, sweetheart. Can I just call you Daddy instead of Daddy Caspian now? The other kids at school think Daddy Caspian is weird." His throat closed up. "You can call me whatever you want." "Okay, Daddy." She said it so naturally, like it was the easiest thing in the world. "Good night." "Good night, Princess." In the hallway, he found Vivian waiting, having overheard. She didn't say anything, just squeezed his hand as he wiped his eyes. The weeks that followed settled into a rhythm that felt like healing. Caspian worked from his home office, emerging for school pickups and homework help. Vivian created new snow globe designs in the art studio he'd built for her, the children often helping with tiny details. They had family dinners every night. Movie nights on Fridays. Pancake breakfasts on Sundays. Normal, domestic, beautiful routine. And slowly, the walls between Caspian and Vivian continued to come down. It happened in small moments. Her laughing at one of his jokes. Him bringing her coffee in the studio without being asked. Their hands brushing as they both reached for the same dish. The way they'd started finishing each other's sentences when talking about the kids. 8 months after she'd walked into his anniversary party, Vivian found Caspian in his office late one night, head in his hands. "What's wrong?" she asked from the doorway. He looked up, and she saw tracks of tears on his face. "I was just reading an article about developmental milestones. All the things that happen in the first 5 years. And I missed it all, Viv. Every single moment." She crossed the room and did something she hadn't done since the night he'd left. She pulled him into her arms. "You can't get it back," she said softly. "But you're here now. That's what matters. Is it enough? Ask them." She nodded toward the photos on his desk, for smiling faces. "Ask them if you being here now is enough. What about you?" He pulled back to look at her. "Am I enough for you?" She studied his face, seeing the regret and hope and desperate love there. "I'm getting there," she admitted. "You're making it really hard to stay angry at you." "Good." He managed a watery smile. "That's the goal." 2 weeks later, Ethan came running into the house, waving a permission slip. "Dad! We're doing a father-son camping trip for Cub Scouts. Can we go? Please." Caspian's heart nearly exploded. "Dad." Not Daddy Caspian. Just Dad. "Of course we can go. When is it?" "Next month. It's a whole weekend." Ethan's excitement was palpable. "We get to build fires and sleep in tents and everything." After Ethan ran off to tell his siblings, Vivian appeared beside Caspian. "He called you Dad." "I heard. That's all for now." She smiled. "You've officially been accepted." That night, alone in his bedroom on the opposite side of the house from Vivian's, Caspian reflected on how much had changed. A year ago, he'd been married to a woman he didn't love, running companies he didn't care about, living a life that meant nothing. Now he had 4 children who called him Dad. He had a woman he'd never stopped loving slowly learning to trust him again. He had a home filled with laughter and love and the beautiful chaos of family. He had everything that mattered. The father-son camping trip was both a disaster and perfect. It rained the entire weekend. Their tent leaked. Ethan got poison ivy. Caspian burned the hot dogs and undercooled diezmores. Best trip ever. Ethan declared on the drive home, covered in mud and calamine lotion. "Can we do it again next year, Dad?" "Absolutely." That night, helping Ethan shower off the mud and treat the poison ivy, Caspian felt the last wall between them crumble. His son trusted him. Fully, completely, without reservation. When he emerged from Ethan's room, he found the other 3 children waiting. "Can we do stuff like that?" Sophie asked. "Not camping, but like, special dad and me things." "Of course. What do you want to do?" "There's an art gallery downtown doing a workshop for kids and parents." Sophie looked hopeful. "It's next Saturday. I'll be there." He looked at Lucas. "What about you?" "There's a lecture at the planetarium about exoplanets. It's really advanced, probably boring." "Lucas, there's nothing about space that I find boring when I'm with you. We'll go." Grace tugged his hand. "And me?" He scooped her up. "What does my Grace want to do?" Can we go to the butterfly garden? And then get ice cream? And then watch a movie? That's 3 things. Is that okay? With you? Everything is okay. Over the next month, Caspian had individual dates with each child. He learned Sophie's favorite artists and why she loved Impressionism. He and Lucas had heated debates about the possibility of life on Europa. Grace taught him the names of 20 different butterfly species and made him try every flavor of ice cream in the shop. And with each outing, each moment of connection, he became more woven into the fabric of their lives. Vivian watched it all. Watched him become the father she'd once dreamed he'd be. Watched her children bloom under his attention. Watched him choose them, again and again, over everything else. One evening, after the children were in bed, she found him on the back porch, looking at the stars. "You're thinking too loud." She sat beside him. "I can hear it from inside. I was just thinking about that first Saturday at the park. How awkward I was. How I didn't know how to talk to them. You've come a long way. We've come a long way." He corrected. "You gave me a chance I didn't deserve." "No." She leaned against his shoulder, a gesture that had become natural. "I gave our children a chance to know their father. What you did with that chance, that was all you." They sat in comfortable silence, shoulders touching, watching the stars. "Caspian," she said softly. "I'm not scared anymore." He turned to look at her. "Not scared of what?" "Of you leaving. Of this not being real. Of waking up and finding out it was all temporary." She met his eyes. "You've proven yourself. To them, to me. You're not the man who left on Christmas Eve. You're someone better. Viv, She put her finger on his lips. "Let me finish. I've been thinking about what you said. About second chances. About building something new based on who we are now instead of who we were. And I think I'm ready." "Ready for what?" "To stop thinking of us as co-parents and start thinking of us as, us." He cupped her face gently. "Are you sure?" "I'm terrified," she admitted. "But yes. I'm sure." He kissed her then, soft and careful, like she was something precious that might break. And she kissed him back, years of walls and fear and protection finally coming down. Inside, 4 children who were supposed to be asleep high-fived each other. "Finally," Sophie whispered. "I was running out of ways to leave them alone." The statistical probability was always in favor of reconciliation. Lucas said smugly. "Does this mean we can stop pretending we don't notice when they hold hands?" Ethan asked. "It means," Grace said with the wisdom of 5 years old, "that we're a real family now." The next 3 months were a revelation. Caspian and Vivian navigated their new relationship with the care of people who'd been broken before and knew how fragile repaired things could be. They went on dates. Real ones, with her brother James babysitting and them dressing up and remembering what it was like to be just Caspian and Vivian instead of mom and dad. They talked about the past, really talked, working through the pain and betrayal with the help of a couples therapist who specialized in rebuilding trust. They built a future together, making plans that included all 6 of them, dreaming about what their family could become. And 1 year to the day after Vivian had walked into his anniversary party, Caspian knew it was time. He'd been planning for months, involving all 4 children in the conspiracy. They'd helped design the ring, a custom piece incorporating elements from Vivian's snow globes. They'd planned the setting, Vivian's workshop where she created beauty from glass and imagination. They'd practiced their parts with the seriousness of co-conspirators. Christmas Eve arrived with fresh snow and the smell of cinnamon and pine. The workshop was transformed, twinkle lights draped across every surface, candles flickering on the workbenches, for children pretending very badly to be absorbed in their projects. "Viv, can you come here for a second?" Caspian called from the center of the workshop. She looked up from the custom snow globe she was creating, their house in miniature. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. He took her hand. I just have something to say. The children abandoned all pretense, gathering around with barely contained excitement. A year ago. Caspian began, his voice not quite steady. I was given a gift I didn't deserve. A second chance to be the father I should have been from the beginning. A second chance to know the woman I was too blind to value. He looked at each of the children. I've learned that wealth isn't measured in properties or investments. It's measured in soccer games and art shows and science fairs. In bedtime stories and inside jokes and the way Lucas explains constellations. In Sophie's paintings and Ethan's trust and Grace's hugs. He turned fully to Vivian and slowly, carefully, knelt down. 4 children gasped in unison. I don't deserve you. Caspian said, voice breaking. I never did. But if you'll have me, I promise to spend every day for the rest of my life earning what I once threw away. He pulled out the ring box, but also a snow globe. Custom made, showing their family of 6 in this very workshop, captured forever in glass and imagination. Vivian Morgan, love of my life, mother of our extraordinary children, the artist who taught me to see beauty in simple moments. Will you marry me? Will you let me be not just their father, but your partner? Your equal. Your home. Tears streamed down Vivian's face. Say yes, Mommy. Grace Whisper shouted. The statistical probability of successful second marriages is actually quite favorable. Lucas added helpfully. Mom, if you don't say yes, I'm painting you into my villain gallery too. Sophie threatened, but she was crying and smiling. Ethan said nothing, but his eyes were bright with hope. Vivian looked at the man kneeling before her. The man who'd broken her, then spent a year rebuilding not just their family but himself. She saw every 2 a.m. fever vigil, every school event he'd never missed, every patient homework session, every way he'd learned to speak each child's love language. She saw the art studio he'd built without being asked. She saw a year of consistent, humble presence. She saw not who he'd been, but who he'd become. Ask me properly. She whispered, echoing the fantasy she'd dreamed 1,000 times. Caspian's face broke into a smile of pure joy. Vivian Morgan, will you marry me? 4 children held their breath. The workshop fell silent except for the soft tinkling of snow globes. Yes. The word was barely out before 4 children tackled their parents, sending them all tumbling to the floor in a tangle of laughter and tears and joy. We're getting married. Grace sang, dancing around them. We're a forever family now. We always were, sweetheart. Vivian said, accepting the ring with shaking hands. We just made it official. Later, after the children finally fell asleep still buzzing with excitement, Caspian and Vivian stood in the workshop surrounded by her creations. Tiny worlds captured in glass, each one perfect and complete. I want to make a special one. She said softly. For us. 6 figures this time. Our family of 6. He wrapped his arms around her from behind. What moment will you capture? This one. She leaned into him. Christmas Eve. The moment everything came full circle. The moment we both finally came home. Outside, snow fell soft and silent, covering the world in pristine white. Inside, surrounded by tiny captured worlds, Caspian Ashford held the only world that mattered. He'd walked into that anniversary party a year ago thinking he had everything. He'd been so catastrophically wrong. This was everything. This woman in his arms. These 4 children asleep upstairs. This home they'd built from broken pieces and second chances. This was redemption. This was love. This was home. 2 years later, the Christmas card showed a family of 7. Baby Hope, named for what had brought them back together, slept in her father's arms while 4 older siblings clustered around. Caspian Ashford still ran a billion-dollar empire, but he did it from a home office between school pickups and ballet recitals. His companies thrived under leadership he'd finally learned to trust, because being present for his family mattered more than being irreplaceable at work. Vivian's snow globe art had exploded internationally. Galleries from Paris to Tokyo showcased her work. But her favorite piece remained on their mantle. 6 figures, now 7 with the addition of baby Hope, captured forever in that moment of redemption and reunion. Ethan, now 7, had stopped testing whether his father would stay. Caspian had proven it too many times to doubt. The boy coded complex programs with his father's patient help, already talking about MIT like it was inevitable. Sophie's paintings covered every wall of their home. One piece, titled The Man Who Came Home, showed Caspian kneeling in the workshop, for children around him, Vivian with her hand extended. It hung in the place of honor above the fireplace, and Caspian cried every time he really looked at it. Lucas had won the National Science Fair with his father's collaboration. Their shared love of stars had deepened into a bond that needed few words, just the comfortable silence of two people who understood each other completely. Grace, who'd once asked why she didn't have a daddy, now complained loudly that her father was embarrassingly present at every school event, often the loudest cheerer. But she secretly loved it, loved being the girl whose daddy never missed anything. And baby Hope, born exactly 3 years after that anniversary party, was the physical embodiment of their second chance. For older siblings doted on her, teaching her the same lessons about love and family and second chances that they'd learned themselves. So what can we learn from Caspian and Vivian's story? What does this journey teach us about choices and consequences and redemption? First, understand that success means nothing if you have no one to share it with. Caspian built a billion-dollar empire and felt hollow. True wealth is measured in moments, in relationships, in love given and received. You can have all the money in the world and be completely bankrupt in what actually matters. Second, second chances exist, but they must be earned. Caspian didn't just apologize and expect forgiveness. He showed up, consistently, humbly, for a year before Vivian even began to trust him again. Redemption isn't a single moment. It's 1,000 small choices to be better, to do better, to choose love over convenience. Third, children are more forgiving than we deserve, but they never forget. Ethan, Sophie, Lucas, and Grace gave their father a chance, but he had to prove himself worthy of it every single day. Love isn't just a feeling for children. It's presence, consistency, promises kept. Fourth, pride and ambition will cost you everything if you let them. Caspian chose status and wealth over authentic love, and he lost 5 irreplaceable years. Some prices are too high. Some choices can't be undone. Choose carefully what you're willing to sacrifice for success. Fifth, women are stronger than the men who underestimate them. Vivian raised 4 children alone, built a thriving career from grief, turned pain into art, and survived what would have broken most people. She didn't need Caspian to save her. She chose to let him be her partner, and that's entirely different. Sixth, family isn't just biology. It's choice. Daily recommitment. Showing up even when it's hard. Being present even when it's inconvenient. Choosing love again and again and again. Seventh, it's never too late to become who you should have been. Caspian at 35 was unrecognizable from Caspian at 30. People can change, genuinely and completely, if they're willing to do the work. And finally, home isn't a place. It's people. It's the faces you want to see at the end of hard days. It's the voices you want to hear first thing in the morning. It's the hearts that hold yours, even when you don't deserve it. Caspian Ashford learned these lessons the hard way. He lost 5 years he can never get back. He missed moments that exist now only in photographs he wasn't in. He caused pain he can never fully repair. But he also learned that redemption is possible. That broken things can be mended into something stronger than the original. That love, real love, isn't about perfection. It's about presence. Every morning, Caspian wakes up in a house full of noise and chaos and love, next to the woman he once lost and fought to win back, and he's grateful. Grateful for the chance he didn't deserve. Grateful for the family that chose to forgive him. Grateful for every ordinary moment that makes up an extraordinary life. Because redemption isn't about erasing the past. It's about building a better future. One pancake breakfast, one school pickup, one bedtime story, one quiet moment of presence at a time. This is his empire now. Not hotels and resorts and quarterly earnings. But 7 people who love him, who chose him, who gave him the greatest gift of all. A second chance to get it right. And every single day, he chooses to be worthy of it. If this story moved you, I need to hear from you. Drop a comment and tell me, have you ever gotten a second chance you didn't deserve? What did you do with it? Have you ever had to choose between ambition and what really matters? What did you choose? Smash that like button if you believe people can genuinely change. Subscribe to Mr. Steven Stories if you want more tales that will transform how you see success and family and love. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to come home, to choose differently, to become who they should have been all along. And remember this. The best time to choose love over ambition was yesterday. The second best time is right now. Don't wait for a dramatic confrontation at an anniversary party to realize what matters. Don't lose 5 years of moments you can never get back. Choose your people. Show up for them. Be present. Keep your promises. Measure your wealth in laughter and inside jokes and the way your kids' faces light up when you walk through the door. That's what real success looks like. That's what coming home means. That's what Caspian Ashford finally understood, and what I hope you'll understand too. It's never too late. Until it is. So choose wisely. Choose love. Choose presence. Choose home. Thank you for staying with me through this journey. Until next time, this is Mr. Steven Stories, reminding you that the best stories aren't just entertainment. They're mirrors that show us who we are and windows that show us who we could become. Now go hug your people. Choose them. Show up for them. Be present. Because that's what matters. That's all that ever really matters.